Hello and welcome to Hamer Reviews. My name is Christopher Hamer and today we're going to be looking at the standard prime lenses for Nikon's Z mount series cameras. So we have the 35mm 1.8S here, the 50mm 1.8S and in the centre the 85mm 1.8S. Now I actually own the 35 and 50mm and in fact I film the majority of my videos of both of those, and I've rented out the 85mm 1.8S and I thought it'd be interesting to just take a look at all three and have a chat about which one you might buy and why. So in some ways you could talk about these as standard prime lenses or even standard portrait lenses, because depending on what you're shooting, whether you're doing environmental portraits, whether you're shooting studio portraits, whether you're shooting just sort of out and about portraits, you could actually choose one of these three lenses and be very happy with them. Starting off with image quality, I think it's really important that we talk about the fact that all three of these are magnificent. They are much better than their G f-mount counterparts, especially 1.8 versions, and I think in terms of sharpness and contrast and overall image quality, they certainly give the 85mm versions a run for their money as well. I particularly enjoy using the 85mm for its sharpness when you're taking portraits. It's really impressive. It allows you to get nice and close with a sort of close focus distance of about 0.8 meters. But equally, personally, I prefer something a little wider. So I would usually reach for the 50mm 1.8S, and in some situations, I think I'd prefer the 35mm 1.8S as well. I've actually shot the same photo with all three lenses and the Z7 too, just to give you an idea of what it's like to shoot portraits of these, or indeed sort of full body images, just to give you an idea of what it's like. And I think it's interesting how you get a different perspective on the same image with the same lighting conditions and shot at the same time. I think the thing that you need to think about if you're looking at these is what do you want? So if you are happy to spend money, I'd certainly look at these over the f-mount counterparts for a variety of reasons. One, you have much faster focusing and more importantly, silent focusing, which is important if you want to shoot video. All three of these are excellent video lenses. The second thing I'd keep in mind is construction of these lenses is very good. All of them have metal bayonet mounts. All of them have really high quality metal and plastics and lovely focus rings. It must be said that those focus rings are fly-by-wire, so they aren't actually attached. So you can spin them as much as you want when the lenses are off and it will do absolutely nothing. It's fully electronic. This does make it a little bit challenging if you're shooting in situations where you are sort of doing it by feel, because depending on how fast you spin the ring, it'll accelerate more or decelerate, etc. So it can be difficult to focus manually with these, but if you're using them with a Z mount series camera, which you won't have much choice because they won't fit on anything else, I think it is a very enjoyable experience, even with the manual focusing not being actually fixed to the lens, so purely electronic. When we take off the lens hoods, all three of which obviously included on each respective lens, I think you'll find in terms of size they're very similar. The 50 and 35 are almost identical in some ways. There's a slight height difference, but that is about it. The 85mm is obviously a bit longer and also has a 67mm filter ring rather than a 62 on the 50 and the 35. I think that actually there's just not a huge amount in it when you're using these. The close focus distances obviously differ. 0.8 meters, 0.8 meters for the 85mm, 0.25 millimeters for the 35mm, and about 0.4 millimeters for the 50mm. I would strongly advise not dropping your lens, though I can say that these are very well built and that will not have caused an issue onto my actually quite soft table. But yeah, just try not to drop them if you can, like I just did. I think that one of the things that I'm not sure it's a negative, because a lot of the Nikon cameras now have built-in in-body image stabilization, but none of these have VR. And I think, especially perhaps the 85mm, it is something they may have wanted to build in, because people might be using these with, say, the Z50 that doesn't have in-body image stabilization. There's always a trade-off, isn't there? None of these lenses have it. None of Nikon's primes have it, from what I can think of at the moment. In fact, even the 24-70 2.8S that I'm currently videoing with doesn't have it. So you can see why they've chosen not to. Just bear in mind, none of these do have VR, so if you're shooting on a Z50, or indeed whatever comes next, perhaps a Z30 or whatever it's going to be called, you won't have any stabilization without IBIS. So that might be a downside for anyone that's shooting with a Z50. I haven't seen any major differences in sharpness or contrast or color across these. Maybe I have a slight preference towards the 35, but I wonder whether that's just because it's one of the focal lengths I enjoy using a lot in terms of shooting on the Z50, and you're obviously only using the center of the lens if you're shooting on DX sensor, so maybe that's why my view is slightly skewed there. They're all weather sealed to a certain extent. I wouldn't get them drenched or put them underwater, though you can get them wet and they won't suffer any ill effects. I've used all of them in pouring rain and haven't had any issues. And overall, they're all very enjoyable to use. So yeah, that's just a quick overview of the 35, 50 and 85mm 1.8S lenses. Hope it helped you if you're trying to choose between them at the moment. I can recommend all three, though I have to say the 85mm will not be staying in my bag, as I just don't shoot portraits that exclusively enough not to just grab my 70-200 2.8S, even if the image quality from the 85mm might be a little bit better. So I hope you enjoyed this short little video. If you have any questions about any of the three lenses, please do pop them in the comment section below and I'd be happy to help. Equally, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, the other button works absolutely fine too. And if you haven't, please do subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Goodbye.